Johnson of Texas joins us, and Jared Bernstein, a senior fellow at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Good day to both of you. Congresswoman, good afternoon. Isn't this actual sequester, let's be honest, exactly what Republicans like Paul Ryan have been longing for? I mean, you know that he's put together multiple budgets that would slash everything from Meals on Wheels to transportation services for the disabled. This sequester, it just gives him the chance to see all of these services cut to pieces, and he sits back with clean hands and an impure heart. Is that not true?
Well, sure, it's true. The unfortunate thing is that this is not about Obama. It's not about the president. It's about the people of this nation. It's about the future of this nation. We cannot afford to cut off all of our future because of the threat of sequester. We cannot go forward unless we do some forward thinking and planning. We cannot do that when we're cutting off all of our research and development, when we're cutting off all of our military jobs. Texas, for example, stands to lose over 90,000 jobs. Now, these are jobs where people make more than minimum wage, and they're part of the middle class. If we lose 100,000 jobs just because of sequester, that is just the tip of the iceberg.
And that is one state. That is one state.
One state. One state.
Jared, the entire Republican strategy seems to be predicated on the idea that if the cuts happen, then it's the president who takes the blame. What do you say? What do you think they would say to the new Pew poll that shows half of Americans would actually blame Republicans and less than a third hold the president responsible? Just liberal media bias again.
You know, listening to the poll numbers that you were citing earlier, I once again am struck by how well the American people get this stuff and how poorly Republicans in Congress actually understand what's going on outside their bubble. Now, the thing about the sequester and the Republicans is that this grows out of the Budget Control Act, which was passed in 2011 along bipartisan lines. 73% of House Republicans voted for that act. John Boehner said the day it passed, I got 98% of what I wanted. Paul Ryan, I have a quote from him today on my blog. Paul Ryan said, if they try to breach the spending limits here, the sequester kicks in, we got that in there, something like that. So, you know, these folks have owned this. They, and not unlike what you just said, they thought it was good policy. I mean, by the way, with one exception, Paul Ryan would really not like to see those defense cuts take place.
Oh, no, of course not. We don't want any of those.
So one of the things you have to watch out for is trying to switch from the, you know, kind of a bait and switch, trying to switch from the defense cuts over to the non-defense side of the budget, which can't take, you know, any more cuts as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Congresswoman, my colleague, the Reverend Al Sharpton, just interviewed the president on the radio. I'd like you to take a listen to what the president said about these cuts.
They would prefer to see these kinds of cuts that could slow down our recovery over closing tax loopholes. And that's the thing that binds their party together at this point.
Do you agree that Republicans are, in a sense, enjoying this fight because what it's doing by default is unifying them over something, because they're clearly in disarray following November, but here's a fight where they can basically agree?
They seem to be agreeing, and it's unfortunate because, you know, just to be sticking it to the president is not the answer. This is not the president's responsibility at this time. It is the responsibility of this Congress, and we will be held responsible. This downslide started back in 2001. It has continued, and yes, we've got to do some cutting, but we cannot continue to cut jobs. We've got to create jobs. When you have two of the longest wars in history and big tax breaks, there's no way to get around it. We've got to reverse that. We've already come to the bottom.
But, ma'am, the irony here appears to be that Republicans who have spent the last 4 years telling us they're committed to job creation and national security are happy to head towards the sequester where national security will be threatened and jobs will be lost, not created. According to some estimates, 800,000 jobs.
Indeed, because it cuts off all of the research money, all of the innovation money, all of our universities' research, medical school research, all of that creates jobs. And it creates breakthroughs. That is the future of America. This does away with our future. We will just be a third world country watching the rest of the world go by when we don't look out for our future. Unfortunately, there were people in the past who did look out for our future, and that's how we did so well. But unless we look out for our future now, there is no future for this country. We've got to educate. We've got to innovate. We've got to create jobs. We cannot continue to just cut jobs. It does not do anything positive for the economy to keep cutting jobs.
Jared, finally, as an economist, just give us an overview of how catastrophic this will prove, because there's been so much disputation about whether these cuts will really have much of an impact. Republicans have been running around, people like Haley Barbour, saying he doesn't care. Let the sequester kick in.
Yes, I disagree with Barber's economic analysis. He won't be surprised. In fact, I suspect there isn't much there. Look, when you're thinking about the sequester, you're talking about taking $85 billion out of an economy that's already growing too slowly. I think we would all agree. Growing, yes, but not fast enough to lower the unemployment rate. The sequester, I don't know that I'd use the word catastrophic. The sequester will take 0.5%, something like 0.5% off of GDP growth in this year, in 2013. That's exactly the wrong way. It's like the Congresswoman was saying. It's upside down. We need our policymakers to be promoting growth, not harming growth. What that will do is keep the unemployment rate stuck around 8%. It will cost hundreds of thousands of jobs. This is not partisan analysis. Every macroeconomic analysis I've looked at comes to this conclusion that it's going to slow GDP growth by about 0.5%. Now, GDP growth is slogging along at trend right now, about 2%. Take 0.5% out of that, and you actually have an unemployment rate that's going to be stuck where it is instead of coming down. Exactly the wrong medicine.
Absolutely. Jared Bernstein and Congresswoman Bernice Johnson, thank you both for joining us. And be sure to catch more.